All right. I hear something, so
Yeah, you're good. Just wait. It's coming on.
it'll pop up on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
You'll probably mute,
Yeah.
or you might be able to mute yourself. Do you need something else?
I don't think so. They got the letter.
No, there's something else back here.
Oh. Oh. Maybe it's... The light is glaring.
I'm gonna turn it off.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm gonna try it. Oh yeah, that's probably better.
All right, we'll call this meeting of the Heritage Preservation Board to order. It's 6:30 p.m., October 5th, 2020. Ms. Yothers, will you do the roll call?
Miss Cornell,
Here.
Miss Hallett,
Here.
Miss Ryan,
Here.
Mr. Sprecher, Mr. Sprecher, Mr. Mrozinski,
Here.
All right. Are there any comments from the listening public on any matters other than those on the agenda?
We do not have any public in attendance on the attendees side, ma'am.
All right. Is there a motion for the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting on September 14th, 2020?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of, what did you say the date was?
September 14th, 2020.
September 14th, 2020.
Is there a
Okay.
second?
I'll
This is
second.
Pat.
All right.
Sorry, I
This-
didn't mean to interrupt.
If staff may be recognized. Did you all get minutes in your packet? Because I thought I neglected to include them.
What did you neglect, Pat?
Did you get minutes in your packets?
No,
Okay. So I neglected to put the minutes in there. You haven't seen them, so they could be done at the next meeting. That's what I would suggest.
I would suggest that too.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
Kim-
that
Kim
sounds like a
might
good
not have
idea.
them done, But I didn't put them in the packet, so.
All
okay,
right,
I renege that motion.
That's
Okay.
fine.
we'll pass on that.
Thank you.
Then we'll have a quasi-judicial announcement and swearing in of speakers.
Thank you. This is a quasi-judicial proceeding where the Heritage Preservation Board acts in a quasi-judicial rather than a legislative capacity. At a quasi-judicial hearing, it is not the board's function to make law, but rather to apply law that has already been established. In a quasi-judicial hearing, the board is required by law to make findings of fact based upon the evidence presented at the hearing and apply those findings of fact to previously established criteria contained in the Code of Ordinances in order to make a legal decision regarding the application before it. The board may only consider evidence at this hearing that the law considers competent, substantial, and relevant to the issues. If the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates the applicant has met the criteria established in the Code of Ordinances, then the board is required by law to find in favor of the applicant. By the same token, if the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates the applicant has failed to meet the criteria established in the Code of Ordinances, then the board is required by law to find against the applicant. Are there any members of the board tonight wishing to disclose ex parte communication or conflicts of interest?
I want to mention actually that one of the applicants is a neighbor of mine, but in no way will I let that influence me.
Okay, thank you. That is not a conflict of interest, but I appreciate you letting the board know. Anyone else?
No.
No.
All right, thank you. Anyone that will be speaking tonight, Any applicants present or witnesses, if you could please raise your right hand to be sworn in. If you think you might be speaking tonight, I would suggest getting sworn in. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I
do.
do.
I swear.
All right, thank you. You're all sworn.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is an application number 20-113. And that's 28 North Center Street. Applicant is requesting the certificate of approval to place a new shed on the property. The staff report.
Yes, and I'll go ahead and share my screen. All right, this is a request to place a new shed on the contributing property. This is at 28 North Center Street. This has a contributing 2-story frame vernacular structure. It's on a double lot, and the applicant is proposing to put the shed on the east side of the property. And the house is located on the west side. This is just a visual of the primary structure, contributing structure on the western side of the property. This is the site plan showing where the shed will go on the east side of the property. Basically, the applicant has proposed a front setback of 28 feet for the shed. The front porch of the main structure is set back about 19 feet. And the main house, the green kind of area, is set back about 29 feet. So this survey is to scale, but the drawing isn't quite to scale. The shed will pretty closely line up with the main house towards the front of the property. The applicant's chosen a side utility style of a prefabricated shed so that the gable orientation will correspond with the main house, the front gable orientation. And your guidelines require or recommend that sheds be located in the rear yard or in the side yard closest to the rear yard. So we will be, I see that the applicant is present. We will be hearing from him on the rationale for putting it where he's proposing it. This is approximately over to the east. This is the area where the shed will go. There is existing landscaping, mature landscaping in this area. So it's kind of judged that from the setback and the trees that are remaining on the property that the shed is going to go over in this clearing area. Oops. And the applicant can elaborate on this, but probably here between the treed area. This on the left is a view from the street straight towards the front of the property. So the shed will be over to the east. The applicant has proposed the shed to go right up to the side property line, and there is a 5-foot required setback, but that is the proposal, is basically to go up against that side property line. Here are 2 more shots to assist you with the condition of the property now. It appears that there's, the applicant obviously is working on renovating this home and property. There doesn't appear anything in the rear yard. I didn't walk all the way back there or the side yard. So the applicant can talk about his plans for those areas. The placement along the east property line helps to reduce the impact, and this is the shed. So basically the front of the shed is going to be facing west toward the house, and then what you'll see from the street is just that plain side view. Let's see if there's anything else to add. Obviously, this can be easily removed if it needs to be, so it will not be a significant alteration of the property. It does meet the land development code requirements. Again, it will have to have that 5-foot setback, and staff is recommending that it utilize that 5-foot setback and go as close to that property line as possible. I would say that the applicant can make his presentation and the board can consider the placement of the shed on the property. Staff feels that with the landscaping that's there and perhaps some additional landscaping, the shed could be screened from view from directly in front of the property and perhaps mostly screened from kind of from that west angle across the property. So staff is recommending approval of placement of this shed with 3 conditions. The applicant is just for obtaining permits, and the applicant should submit a landscape plan that screens the shed when he submits for his building permit, screening as much as possible from the public right of way. And the shed should go as close to the east side property line as possible. Are there any questions for me? Oh, and property owners were notified. There were no responses received to the notification.
Oh, thank you, Pat.
Okay.
Is there anybody representing this petition here present that would like to speak on this issue?
Oh, does that mean me? I'm the property owner, Mitch Berger?
Yes, if you're
Yes.
sworn in, yes.
Okay, great. Can you guys see me? Is this,
No, sir, you are on a call, so you have phoned into the,
oh, okay. Okay. Sorry about that, guys.
Sir, can you hear me real quick?
Yeah,
Did you raise your right hand to be sworn in earlier, or do you need to be sworn in?
I did.
Okay,
did.
thank you. So you were sworn. Thank you.
So thank you very much for hearing my application for the shed. You can see from the picture that I presented that there's a lot of vegetation towards the back of the property that's mature that would make it difficult to put it up against the property line. So there's an opening there along the property line where trees are not present that I'm able to put that. There's a little bit of room in the back behind the house, but I'm planning to do some future work and leave that area open for future project. But where the shed is located there, like Pat said, I'm planning to plant a lot of new vegetation, indigenous plants, and putting up a fence as well, but putting a lot of natural shrubs and trees and such to keep the look of the property, and it will hide that shed, I'm sure, because you can see, I have a lot going on, with the commercial building along that property line there. So I'm planning to, hide that as much as I can with, a lot of nice trees and things. And I picked the shed. It's going to have a metal roof. I think it's going to look nice with the house and the property, the work I've done there to try to make it look as nice as possible. I think it should be a nice improvement to the property. And if there's any other questions anyone has for me.
I have a question.
Sure.
You say it's going to be on the east side. How close to the property line on the east side are you intending to put it?
Well, I've talked to the property owner of the commercial building on that side, and the building is actually right on the property line. But I explained to them that I'm keeping the fence a couple feet off of the property line. So he has room in there to do any kind of maintenance to that side of the building. And he also has like a window air conditioner in the building as well. So I talked to him and he's in agreement. He's happy with the fact that, I'm going to leave some space there. With the fence. Mhm.
With that in mind, that you are giving him leeway, how far from the property line will the shed be?
Well, the fence is going to be 2 feet from the property line, and then I was going to keep another 3 feet to the fence. So it'll be 5 feet from the property line.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions?
I do. I have a question also. Mitch, I'm looking at your survey here, and there's really no numbers from the sidewalk to your covered wood deck. But just by looking at the width of the house, which is 24 feet, I'm sort of just guessing that this deck, your front wood deck, is maybe 25 feet from the sidewalk, whereas your drawing for the shed shows 28 feet and it shows it way in back of the house. But by my calculations, it's going to be way closer. Am I wrong, or am I misreading this?
Oh, no, the front deck is actually much closer to the property line. It's probably, I'm going to say 15 feet from the property line.
And then the house itself, another 10 feet. So that's maybe 25 feet from your house itself, maybe is 25 feet from the sidewalk?
Yeah.
Okay, so then on your drawing here, the shed is going to be a lot closer to the sidewalk than it appears, correct? It's not in proportion, I guess, is what I'm saying. The drawing looks like the shed is going to be way at the back of the house when perhaps it's going to be way at the front of the house.
No, it is. It's probably it's like in the middle of the middle of the house, approximately.
According to the information we've been given, your porch is 19 feet back and another 10 feet is the front of the house. That's set back from the front property line of 29 feet. And you're proposing to put the shed 28 feet. So that's comparable to the front of the house. That's quite near the front of the property when your property is 140 feet deep. Why is the
Right.
shed going to be so close to the front of the property?
Well, it really is the only area where I have a clearing of trees, of the mature trees that were there. I had to take out some, there was a lot of huge weeds, and I had Shannon out there, arborist for the town, taking out a lot of the property had not been maintained for quite a while as far as the tree work. So leaving the large palm trees and such, it's pretty much the only area where I could put the shed along the property line without putting it, if I put it any further back, it's going to have to go like in the middle of the property. And I think that's going to be more visible from the road if it's not tucked up against the side.
Well, the
Right
guidelines
now,
the guidelines that we're going by say that it has to be either in the rear or the side property as close to the rear as possible.
okay. All right. Well, I wouldn't be opposed to putting it further back if that would be the requirement.
We would
I'm
have,
just, thankful that I'm able to put the shed in. If you want to, make it where I have to, stay back from the property line a certain number of feet, I would certainly do that.
well, with property 140 feet deep, there must be some leeway. It doesn't look that dense of trees.
I agree
Okay.
with that. I think it should be back further than the 28 feet.
As far as I can see,
Yeah.
the 28 feet is the same as the front of the house.
The house.
And that's not what the guidelines recommend or that would be attractive to the neighborhood.
Well, I would certainly be willing to move it back. It would just have to be, now it'll be 15 to 20 feet away from the property line, which I'm not opposed to doing. That would be fine. I wouldn't have any problem with that if that would be the requirement.
We'd have to know how far back, because a couple feet doesn't really follow the guidelines. It would have to be a substantial amount of footage to be able to
Sure.
follow these guidelines. And
And whatever,
we'd need to
I'd
know
like-
where that would be.
Sure. And then, like Pat said, the property, it's a very large property. So if you give me a number of feet that you would like it back from the property line, it would go back, and then it would go towards the center of the property.
Which would be fine if you put it back and then landscape it. I don't think it would be as visible from the street as where you're placing it now.
Okay.
I'm not sure, guys. I think that pulling it out more from work, because right now he's kind of putting it in a niche. And yeah, it is closer than what we thought, but he's pushing it over towards that. It's an eyesore of a wall back there. But if we pull it out and push it to the back, then it's more in sight with the street instead of being tucked behind trees. I don't know if there's any room in the back to tuck it in between trees. But kind of where that clearing shows, it looks like there's a couple of large trees on each side of it. And then I don't know what color, if it's painted color of a house to where it kind of blends in, that might help too. It's hard to tell because we don't have good pictures of the back of the house.
Right.
Well, that east piece of property, lot 7, measures, according to the map we were given, 100 by 140 deep. And looking at the pictures of the trees that are there are trees there, but they're not that dense that they couldn't fit in an appropriate area, a 10 by 20 shed, close to the east side and close to the back.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have a problem doing that. I mean, to be honest with you, I really did want to cover up the building. As you can see, it's, I didn't want to say this, but it's a horrible eyesore. And that's really, kind of why I wanted to kind of cover it up a little bit as well.
I can understand that. It is an
Yeah.
eyesore.
It is.
But I think a 20-foot shed wouldn't do what you wanted to do. Shrubbery would do more for you than
Right.
a 20-foot shed.
Yeah. Fast growing areca palms would do it.
I was planning on keeping that buffer between the shed and the fence line, and maybe putting some tall shrubbery behind as well to try to cover it. But I feel very, and I know you can't trust that I'm going to follow through with it, but I plan to put a lot of greenery around it, and I'm absolutely sure you're not going to see anything from the road. But if you did want this further back, if you give me a number, if you say, we want you to be, 60, feet back, I would certainly, abide by that. I would love to get my bikes out of, and my kids' bikes out of our living room. So I was just really, I'm willing to do whatever, I have to do in order to try to do that.
And just for the board's information, this district requires a 20-foot rear yard setback. So the guidelines would tell you that the shed should go behind the house or When it says side yard of the rear, they're talking about the rear setback area. It doesn't have to be that far back, but just for your information, the setback here for a rear yard is 20 feet. In case that helps you.
Well, I could see locating it towards the back, parallel with the rear of the house, or even with the rear of the house, rather than even with the front of the house. Sheds belong towards the rear rather than in the front yard.
I agree with that, Pat.
And I think that it would have to go back at least to the level with the rear of the house, if
Mhm.
not further.
I think also maybe if you put the shed, I don't know how to, but turn it so the door is opening towards the street in the very rear of the house, it would be covered better by landscaping and maybe more useful.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be opposed to that. That would be fine.
All right, so there is another issue with the shed that I would like to raise. And that is the picture that we were given of the proposed shed. According to the guidelines we're following, new construction should reflect the character of the existing building that we're on the property. And the shed does not do that. The house has a horizontal clapboard style siding. And the picture of the shed is a two-tone vertical siding that doesn't match the house at all.
If he moved that shed to the back with landscaping and it wasn't seen well, you know, from the road, actually, couldn't he put in any shed he wants to?
Well,
without
according
having it-
to the guidelines, it's supposed
Right.
to complement the existing
Mhm.
historical building.
But he could do it with color.
Well, what we've been presented is a two-tone picture of vertical stripes, a vertical siding rather than the horizontal single clapboard,
Right.
single color house.
Mm.
It doesn't
Can I make
match or complement or the house at all.
Can I make a suggestion?
Go ahead.
What I could do, because I did have to replace a lot of the siding on the front of the house, and the side, pieces here and there with the lap siding. And I know where to get it, and it's not a problem to say maybe the facade, the front of the shed, I could make the lap siding, the wood lap siding on the front. If you would like, I can do that.
The guidelines that we're limited to are saying that it has to complement the existing historic building. And what the picture shows, it does not.
Yeah, but with what he just suggested, that would
That would be a compromise.
compromise. Mhm. That'd be great. Mm.
Are there any other questions?
Well,
Or
Pat, I
comments?
do. And I agree with you. It was something I was going to bring up about the appropriateness of the design. Little too rustic for me to match the existing house that was built in 1920. Mitch, if you're willing to re-side this front, is there any reason why you didn't think about a stick-built shed instead of one of these prefabs with no eaves and a you know, the roof line is not the correct roof line to match your house? Is there any reason you decided to go with a prefab?
No. If really, it's just, it was just a cost factor, and I try to do everything myself because I haven't had a real good experience with some of the contractors that we've used so far. So if I could put the siding on, but I still have a lot to do with the house and the property. So I really didn't want to get into building the shed, to be honest.
There's wood frame sheds that possibly that, they bring all made, on a,
That's what they do.
Well,
Oh.
price could be a contributing factor in the different manufacturer of sheds. I think if the facing on this shed that was facing the street, the front of the shed and the sides, the two were made to conform with the look of the house. It does not now, and it's would be more of an eyesore than anything else. It can't, two-tone in color is just not goes with our guidelines at all.
That the picture is just the style of the shed. We are painting it white to match the house.
Ah,
there you go.
that makes a big difference.
There you go. Yep. Yep. Okay.
Okay, well, are there any other questions for this gentleman? If not, would somebody care to make a motion that includes all the revisions that we've discussed?
Chair, before you make that motion, Mr. Sprecher, I noticed, were you here for the entire presentation?
No, I was not. So
Okay, so,
I'm out.
okay, so yeah, you can vote on the next one, but not on this one. Thank you.
Understand. Yeah.
What exactly are we requesting from him as far as how far off the street?
That the house should be set back at least to the rear of the house.
Is that
The shed should be comparable to the rear of the house.
But which side of that shed? I mean, the part that's closest to the street will be at the back of the house, or the part that's furthest away, so 20 feet. That's, you know what I mean? We're setting it back to be to the side of the house, but what point of the shed, where does that shed start and end? Does it start at the back line and go back 20 feet? Or is it ending at the end of the house, which brings it 20 feet closer to the street? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yes.
If staff maybe recognize just the rear of the house comes out to about 77 feet from the front property line, if that helps. So if you want to come up with an.
So then it should be at least 77 feet or more from the front.
From the front, and then 20 feet beyond that.
All right.
To the back.
Whichever way, yes. If it's 77 feet from the front property line, there'll be more than 20 feet left over for the back. It's 100.
I'm fine with that.
Lot.
Yep, I'm fine with that.
Oh, well, that's good.
Then I'll motion with that limitation and painting it to match the house to approve it.
Do we have a second for that?
Also, I'm sorry, I think staff also recommended, and staff can correct me, that the other recommendation, there was other recommendations requiring permits, landscaping, those things. So I don't know if your motion would include those or not.
Yes, it would.
Well, also, it was recommended that the new siding, the lap siding, be put on the front of it. He mentioned that he would do that. So is that part of the motion too?
I was not motioning that. If it was painted, I thought it would blend in, but.
Okay.
Right. I agree with just the paint. I don't think he has to reside.
it seems overkill to re-side a new shed,
Right, right.
but painting would make a difference. It
Right.
should match the house. Regardless of whatever color the house eventually becomes, the shed should match it.
Mm.
That sounds good.
So-
So there is a motion with all of those recommendations pending.
Okay,
I second.
roll call. Do we have a roll call for the vote?
He's muted.
Oh,
Tim, you're on mute.
He's working on
Yeah.
it.
Okay. Mr. Mrozinski,
I'm going to vote no because of the siding issue.
Mrs. Ryan,
Yes.
Hallett,
Yes.
Mrs. Cornell,
yes. Then it's been passed. All right, with those recommendations, it has been passed.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your help with this, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, the next one on the agenda is CA 20-121 at 216 Banana Street. And it's the approval for solar panels on the main house.
And I will share my screen again.
Staff report?
Yes. All right. Sorry. Okay, this request for a photovoltaic system. In other words, solar panels on roof of a contributing structure at 216 Banana Street. This is a framed vernacular with solar panels proposed on 3 of the roof surfaces near the rear of the in the rear of the structure. This is a cross-gabled residence exhibiting multiple individual roof planes, and the majority of the panels are to be located, well, this is a look at the front of the structure of the property. As you can see on the drawing, the majority of the panels are to be located on the 2 front-oriented gables back of the house. And then there are 2 panels proposed for part of that cross gable section. Okay, so these will not be visible from directly in front of the house over here. This is a view of the side of the house, showing the southern side of the house, showing one of the roof planes where the panels will be. I entered the vacant lot to the south, which the applicant also owns, to take this picture. So this is not from the street, but it just shows you the where the panels are going to be going. This is just a schematic of the attachment of the panels to the roof. So again, here's the front of the structure. On the north side, you won't be able to see those 2 panels really at all. There's only a very small area of that north side cross gable that you can see. This was taken from the street and kind of zoomed in. Okay, so this is the view from the south side coming down the sidewalk. This is the area where the panels will be. Again, as you get closer to the house, this is the area in the back where the panels will be. So they are partially visible across that vacant lot, which has some mature landscaping, but they are not visible from the front of the house. The roof covering obviously is shingles. It's a darker roof cover and a relatively dark paint color for the house. So the black panels, which you see here, shouldn't be all that noticeable on the house. The proposal does meet your guidelines, requiring that modern equipment not be located on the front building or facade. So it does meet that. And asks that the solar equipment be located on the rear or backside part of the roof. So the applicant has proposed that. This modern equipment will also not eliminate any architectural features that are notable for this structure. The project meets the land development code and is consistent with the comprehensive plan. It will be required to meet the city's building code. And staff is recommending approval of the application. Some of you may have a packet with a misprint. This is recommendation of approval to place a roof-mounted photovoltaic system on the subject property with a condition that the applicant obtain all permits. This was noticed. There was one inquiry about the project, but there were no public comments received. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Pat. Is there anybody from the applicants here to speak on this project?
I'm here.
Hello.
Hello.
Have you been sworn in?
I have.
Okay.
And Madam Mayor, I think, or Madam Chairperson, we have Kent Eugene Osborne, which is on the attendee side. Would he need to be let in?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Pat.
And has the board any questions for the applicant?
No.
No? And as far as I can see, it's met all the city guidelines.
Right.
So if there's no discussion about it, then is there someone is going to,
I'll make a motion.
good.
Okay, I move that we accept the application 20-121 216 Banana Street as presented.
Is there a second
I'll second it.
and a roll call?
Mr. Mrozinski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan,
Yes.
Ms. Hallett,
Yes.
Mr. Sprecher,
Yes.
Ms. Cornell.
Yes. Thank you. Motion has been passed. Congratulations.
Right.
Okay,
Fabulous.
last item on the agenda. CA 20-122, 20 Reed Street. Application wants to place an addition, two things. Place an addition on the main residence and attach a carport to the front of the existing garage. Is there anybody from the applicant here to speak on this, about this?
Yes, I'm
And,
here.
and you are,
I'm Bill Larson, the homeowner.
have you been sworn in?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And we've all read it. Has anybody got any questions for this gentleman?
Chair, I believe would staff have a presentation for this application?
Oh, I'm sorry, Pat.
Yeah, if the board wants one, I've got one.
I always forget you, Pat. All right, go ahead. I'm
That's
sorry.
all right. It's because your name's Pat.
Good
All right,
day.
I'm gonna share screen and I'll try to get through this quick. And let's see. All right, so we heard what the application is for. This is again another double lot. This is a contributing property, and there are basically three structures on the property. The main house, which is contributing, There is another residential structure near the back, which is not contributing and not a part of this project. And there is a garage, which was built in 2003 with a certificate of approval given to them for that project. This is a view of basically the whole front of the property, showing the garage built in 2003 and the main house. Again, views of the front of the main house. And this is the proposal. Basically, the applicant is proposing an addition on the back. You all have read the staff report. Really, I've suggested some conditions for this, but the main point of this with respect to your guidelines is it is an addition to the back of the house. It won't be visible from directly in front. It is replacing and enlarging, but replacing a previous non-original addition to the back of the house. The carport is coming up, adding to the front of that garage. The only concern with respect to this that I would say that the board might consider would be how far up this is coming. It comes to within 4 feet of the front of the main house. It is a carport. The materials are proposed to be, this is the addition, plans of the addition. Sorry, I'll switch back to that. This is the current non-original addition, and this is the new addition on the back. That's just the back. The only architectural feature, by the way, that I think is going to be covered will be this louvered vent, but the applicant proposes to put one just like this on the new addition. This is the carport. So the carport will be coming up closer to the front property line. The fact that it's an open carport and the proposed design elements of the carport kind of help to keep it congruent with the property and also help to keep that main house as the main kind of attraction on the property. The garage and carport are also set fairly far away from the main house. So staff is recommending approval of this application with some conditions, basically addressing permits to be obtained, conformance with the zoning dimensional standards. There is an incorrect dimensional standard for the front of the carport. It needs to be 25 feet back, so that will be corrected by the applicant. Proposing that the windows on the west side match the window that is on the west side under the side gable as far as the size. Proposing all wood elements for the windows and door. And the applicant did not specify in the application the material or design really, well, the material for the door, steps and railing. So I would say the applicant should state what those are to make sure that the board approves of those. And that was about it. There was no response received to public notices on this application. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Pat. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant?
I do. Those two beautiful trees, are they going to not be in the way of any of this construction?
That's true. Those camphor trees are, they're awesome. They're much smaller when we first moved here, but yeah, no, they're in between the two lots, actually.
Okay.
It won't, they
Okay.
won't affect them.
Good.
And siding on the addition to the house will match the house?
Yes, ma'am, it'll be novelty siding, just like, well, shiplap siding is what they did in the 20s, but we can't get shiplap siding anymore, so it's novelty siding. It looks very similar to what they had approximately 100 years ago.
Okay. Any other questions?
Well, the door, the steps and the railing.
Yes, ma'am. I want to use the fiberglass door with a composite jamb. They tend not to rot that way, and they pretty much can make them in just about any design you'd like. It is looking out at the pool, so we'd like to use a full view piece of tempered glass inside the door, so you can actually see the pool from the hallway. It lets in a lot of light. And then the stairs would just be pressure treated lumber for the decking.
I have no further questions. Does anybody else? Okay. Well, in that case, is there a motion?
Oh, I guess I can do it. Okay, I make a motion to accept the application 20-122 20 Reed Street as presented.
Is there a second to
And
that?
that is, and as presented, meaning with all the recommendations recommended by staff, correct?
Right, yes.
Great, thank you.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
And the roll call?
Okay. Mr. Mrozinski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan,
Yes.
Ms. Hallett,
Yes.
Mr. Sprecher,
Yes.
Ms. Cornell.
Yes. The motion has been passed. Congratulations.
Okay, thank you. Go Bucks. All right. I waited all night to say that.
Yeah. You want us to put that to a vote?
Oh, no.
Okay. Well, is there any other business that anyone would like to discuss?
I have a question. It's come up in the last two meetings. Are we supposed to be concerned, and this sounds terrible, but are we supposed to be concerned about cost? I remember at the last meeting, one of the reasons one of the applicants was doing something is because she said it was the cheapest way to do it. Someone mentioned today that there was a cost factor on their decision. And I guess I'm just asking, should we even be hearing that cost is an issue? Is that what we're here for, is to decide if someone could do something because it's cheaper? Or, and again, like I said, it sounds terrible that I'm asking.
No, it doesn't sound terrible, but I think it's something that should be considered.
Chair, if I may,
Go
if I
ahead.
may, no, that is not part of your criteria. There are certain things that can come up, but not in this context. And to be fair, it's not that you can't hear them, it's you can hear them, but that's not what you're supposed to be making your decision on. Does that make sense? It's not what we would call competent substantial evidence regarding this application.
But by the same token, if one wanted to restore or make additions or do something to a home, sometimes the most ideal improvement could be cost prohibitive on a small home.
And that may be true, but I'm just letting you know what your guidelines state. And that is, I mean, you can consider it, but it's not what what you're supposed to base as a factor.
But we can think about it.
I can't tell you what not to think.
No, it's just what some homes that are valued at maybe $100,000 can't afford to spend $30,000 doing something that could be
and staff, maybe there are, maybe when it comes to a complete rehaul, I mean, I know that does come up, but for the example of any applicants that were tonight, if it's just this is the cheaper option, that's why I'm doing it, that's not typically as evidence
I
of
can
your
see that.
evidence on the application.
Okay, I can see that. Yes.
Thank you.
All right, well, if that's it, with no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 7:24.
Everyone stay safe.
Thank you. Have a great night. Thank you.
Good night.
Right.